9,950, and 10,000 tanks per day. All right, guys, we're going to talk about the big exploit for Hoi 4 at the moment. So we're going to talk about what the exploit is, what it does, why it's effective, how to make it more effective, a method at the very end. Oh, this is going to blow your mind. That'll make it automated. A fully automated, unlimited tanks. You saw the title and the thumbnail. So first of all, we start off with this beautiful Panzer II. Look at this. An autocannon and a two-man turret. A fantastic piece of work. So we assign mils onto this. We'll assign 28 mils. We'll be producing 2.79 of these per day. Per day. Remember that. But however, what if I want to create a new variant of this tank? So we basically want to modify it somehow by adding something on. We don't really want to modify it. We are going to convert the existing model. Can you see this? Save as new. Boom. Save as new. We now have the Panzer II-A. So now we have two variants of a tank. Different names, but they're exactly the same. So we'll create a new assembly line of this new tank. We'll shift this baby to the top. And then we'll start producing this tank. So we'll produce like 5 mils into that, shall we? And then we're going to play the game as we would normally. So you can see here, we're presuming and we're making these new tank models. Now we want to state this tank is an old model. So therefore we can upgrade to the new model, right? So we're basically creating the same tank, but we're upgrading it. Basically, we're putting a new sticker on it and say, this is brand new, brand new. So how do we do that? We have to go into here, might have to show outdated models. And then we're going to select the old model. There we go, the Panzer II-A, and say this is an outdated decommission. Boom. So now we're going to produce these ones, and then they get added to the stockpile. Then you can hit this button that will convert the Panzer II-A into the Panzer II OGF-A. Now we're producing 2.5 per day, but if we hit this, we go boom. We're now producing 12.25 per day. And then we wait for the day to complete. Boom. And if we hop into our logistics, you can actually see that it did actually produce those extra tanks. So what we just basically did there is we made one tank and basically made it have babies, and it produced an extra 18 tanks. Now let's do it again. Wait for that tank to complete. Then we hit convert. Now it produced 12. Do it again. Wait for that tank to finish. Then we convert that tank to this tank. 13 tanks more. And we hop into here. Now, over 3-4 days, we have now produced 54 tanks. The reason why this is happening is there's some kind of like conversion logic game where it kind of thinks that you're producing a new tank by converting an old one. And normally when you convert an old tank, let's modify this tank, there's like a conversion cost. Can you see that in the bottom right there? Conversion 1.115. So with this number in mind, it would like reduce how many you can produce because there's like a limit of the production cost of converting. However, when you're producing the same tank and telling it to convert to the same tank, which shouldn't really be able to do that really, it's making extra tanks appear out of thin air. So we'll do it again. Boom. 1372, and then you just keep doing this over and over again. Ideally, what you want to do is assign enough military factories so you're producing one of these per day, so you can hit this button once per day. So this is a bit of fiddly, I'll admit, because you've got to keep going back here and hitting this button every day. So now after just a few weeks, we have 220 Panzer II OGF-A's. That is the initial way how you activate this glitch. You're basically multiplying one tank into many different tanks. You're having many, many different tank babies. How do we make this better though? So first of all, having the resources for it is one thing. The next, having extra production efficiency cap is the next thing. So we'll research a bunch of things that you would normally have about 1939. So we'll have the first basic machine tools, and we're also going to have a little bit of concentrate or dispersed industry. In this instance, to use this exploit the most effectively, it's best to have more concentrated industry than dispersed industry. Why? Because the flat production cost is higher on concentrated. You get an extra 5% here, an extra 5% here, where it would just be 10-10 for both of these. So we'll go for that. Now, if we hop back into here and convert, we're now producing 18 per day. At the same time, you can start undersigning military factories when you get more production efficiency. So we're producing 1.7 here. So now you can take them away. And if you hover it here, you can see producing 1 per day. Then you're assigning more military factories to this tank. So therefore, when you do the exploit again, you're producing more tanks. Let's do it again. Boom. 21 per day, 22 per day, 23 per day, 24 per day. As you can see, that number is going up higher and higher and higher and higher. But we're not done yet. Now, if you want to take it to the next level, we will go for both conversion technologies. So a lot of people thought that these technologies made you convert factories from sieves to mills quicker. Maybe I can understand that because the icons didn't look like that. But these are conversion techs. They basically increase it 40% for each one. So you are producing and converting 80% faster, which basically means when you press this button, you're now producing 230 per day, 251, 257. But remember, you can undersign military factories from here because your production efficiency cap's getting high. You only need to produce one of these per day. Boom. 271 per day, 277 per day, 291, and 300 tanks per day. It can be taken even further. You can have more production efficiency cap. You can have more concentrated industry. industry. And of course, you can produce more military factories. The more military factories you've got assigned here, the more you'll get overall. Boom, you hit the button. As you can see, as the production efficiency cap is going higher and higher, the amount of tanks that you are producing per day is astronomical. Remember, guys, this isn't just a number, because if you look here, we actually do have these physical tanks. 7,000 of these boyos. Be aware, the more expensive the tank is, the less of them you'll be able to multiply. So this tends to be less effective, for instance, for the really big, super heavy ones. In this case, we make one of these. Then we go to the heavy, create a new one, because you've got to create a variant of the existing one. Then you've got to unassign it. Then you need to make sure you're producing enough of these to make one per day, which is more difficult because these are very expensive tanks. So right now, we're producing one of these per day. Then if we convert them, we're now producing 33 of them. Now, don't get me wrong, 33 heavy tanks in one day is amazing. And as the production efficiency cap goes higher, you will end up producing more and more and more of these. And as you can see, it will start to go up higher and higher and higher. The biggest factor that will slow down your progress in duplicating tanks is how much production efficiency cap you've got. 12% of a potential 90%. In this case, obviously the production can gain a lot more over time. The biggest issue with this is the fatigue of having to constantly keep pressing this button over and over and over again. One thing you might want to do is change this tank into a different model and then convert from the old one. Remember, you will produce less tanks if you are converting from a model that is actually different. It's best to have the photocopy the same tank over and over again. So can we make this tank really expensive, for instance, by adding on, I don't know, sloped armor and then smoke launchers, then whacking on a bigger engine and then cast armor, torsion bar, petrol electric engine, and then we convert that over. Now, when we convert this, as you can see, the production now is crap. So we're basically producing 3 per day. Be aware, though, now we've got the pool of the old tanks. It's better to delete the old tanks and therefore start over. Because you're producing unlimited tanks, it's usually better to delete your old models before moving on to the next one. So producing 3 per day. Yes, you are producing more tanks than what you originally was, but it's nowhere near as many as hundreds and hundreds of tanks you were producing before. So to get back to that, you basically have to go back to the old tank here, make a copy of it, and then decommission it. We'll go back into here and then erase the old tanks. Gonna assign more on here, so we're producing 1 per day. There we go. And then we convert over, producing 33. So now we are actually tank printing. Remember, it's most effective when you are printing the same model that you've already got. Do avoid converting. You will have to go through the rigmarole of creating a new tank template, decommissioning it for both of them if you want to get the most optimal way of doing it. Okay, so another question people asking me is, does this work with mechanized, armored cars, and planes? The answer is yes, with a big fat asterisk. And that asterisk is not enough to make it worthwhile. It does work. You will produce maybe ×3 or ×3 extra armored cars or mechanized or planes, but it won't be enough to actually make it worth it. I'll illustrate. I'll show you. So in this case, we'll create a fighter. We'll create another fighter. We'll modify that fighter ever so slightly. We'll decommission the old fighter to produce enough for 1 per day. So keep adding on to make 1 per day. Then we assign the rest onto here. Then we produce 1. Then we hit the button to convert. And now we're producing 2. So we have converted 1 plane into 2 planes. Is that actually worth it? No, it really isn't. For the amount of clicks that are required to click this and the fatigue for it, I don't think it's actually worth it. And that's also taking into account the concentrated industry, the production line, efficiency cap bonuses, and the 2 conversion techs. I'm going to be honest with you. If you are a hardcore multiplayer boyo, the ability to convert 1 plane into 3 is probably going to feel really good. However, I don't think it's enough to make it worth your while in this circumstance. So yes, it does work. It probably increases the production by 50%. However, it's a little bit fatiguing to have to click this over and over and over again. Not really worth it in comparison to tanks. So the answer to your question is yes, it does work with armored cars. Yes, it does work with planes. Yes, it does work with mechanized. However, the number that you produce is astronomically less than when you produce it with tanks. When you are converting an old tank and you make it the new model, you don't want to be converting the old ones. Now, the easy method is to go into your logistics and basically just delete the old tanks. That's an easy way of doing it, the normie version. The next version, though, is you go into the tank itself, specifically select equipment, and tell it not to use equipment of the type that's the old model. So basically say, don't use any of those, don't use any of those, and don't use the old model, which is the A. So you'll produce the A, they won't go to divisions, and then you can convert them into these ones. You have to constantly keep doing this. It's quite fiddly. There's a lot of clicking involved. Every time you make a new model, up-to-date one, you need to be keeping the tank printing process going, or otherwise it won't work. But just be aware, you have to specifically say that the old models can't go. In this case, look, the A is an old model, so the A cannot go to the divisions. Please do this ahead of time, because there's a kind of a weird bug at the minute that if you specifically say don't add this kind of tank onto my divisions, they'll still sit in the divisions, but they won't reinforce new ones. You're doing an exploit here, guys. There's a few hoops you've got to jump through to get there. You've been shown how to abuse this exploit. I am going to show you how you take it one step beyond. First of all, you've got your regular tank. Then you've got your old model, but not just one old model. You need 2 old models. That's right. We have the A and we have the B. Both of them are out of date. Whoop, up the top. Whoop, up the top. Then we need to produce enough that we're producing 1 per day. And then we pop all the others onto the new model. Then we wait 1 day. We hit convert. There we go, boys. There we go. The process has been fully automated. Don't forget, you only need to produce 1 per day. So unassigned factories, so you're only producing 1 per day. This is a completely automated tank printing press. How insane is this? You need to be producing at least 1 per day of these tanks. Otherwise, it will click off. You see it just clicked off there? So you have to click it on again. Process is completely 100% automated. And as long as there's 2 tanks available, 2 old models, 1 of this one and 1 of this one, the process will continuously keep producing new tanks. How many tanks? Infinity tanks. So potentially here, as production efficiency cap goes up, your limit of how many tanks you can produce is limitless. You could argue that you could do this with mechanized planes or armored cars to convert and make the process more automated, but you will not get as much bang for your buck. You will not produce nowhere near as many tanks. We are now producing 5,000 per day. Remember, I'll say this again, this is more effective for cheaper tanks. It allows you to produce an insane number of light tanks. But be aware that light tanks aren't that weak anymore. Now you can modify them to add sloped armor onto them, armor skirts, and whack on like 18 ticks of armor onto them. So now we have 1 mil assigned to each of these 2 old tank models, but the production we are producing here is 6,000, and the number, look at the number, just keeps crawling up higher and higher and higher. It's so dumb, isn't it? And remember, the production efficiency cap is not 100% right now. It's still going. Here we go, boys. We're about to hit 10,000 tanks per day. Here we go. 99,950 and 10,000 tanks per day. Just to illustrate how far we can go with this, we're going to go for a super heavy and max out the armor, max the engine out. You're probably thinking, oh, he's just doing it with light tanks. Light tanks are a thing, right? Nah. There we go. Look at this boyo. This is the mouse. The mouse A, and then another variant of this one called the mouse B. And there we go. We're producing 95 mouses per day. A literally maxed out mouse. The biggest cap is to be able to produce 1 of these per day with both of the old models, and then having enough military factories as well to maintain the production on the bottom as well. Obviously, right now, this is not a realistic scenario. So to make this level of a tank is just ridiculous. I mean, 78 production costs per tank is just ridiculous. I don't even think the stats are actually worth it for this kind of tank as well. Another big question everyone keeps asking me is, Dankus did this first. Yes, Dankus did make the very first video talking about this exploit. However, I was aware of it in early June. Someone DM'd me and told me about it, and I made a video about it ready to release it when the time was right, because I didn't want to destroy MP games. Because this exploit is really bad. It's really bad. You're duplicating tanks out of thin air, and you are ruining multiplayer games for people by letting this exploit go ripe in the community. So I decided to hold on to the video until it was closer to PDX coming back from their summer holiday. So even after we're in Stockholm for PDX, they like have 2 months off, I think, where they don't come back until like 2 weeks into August. So I knew that this patch would not get patched until they came back. Hence the reason why I held on to it. But Dankus, MP Boyo, released it anyway. So MP is dead until it comes back. Don't blame me. Don't blame me. I held on to this, okay? I didn't want to ruin it. But at the end of the day, if it's out there in the community and you guys are already aware of it, I might as well release the video, right? So I did what I thought was best at the time, okay? I did my best, all right? I did my best. If you enjoy exploits and you want to see more exploits on my channel, why aren't you subscribed? And why haven't you liked this video? You think this video was good? Well, this one is the final form. Click it